Felicidades, congratulations on Will Trent getting picked up for season 4. What does the series renewal mean for you?
I mean, it means we get to dive back in to these amazing characters and this world, to get to collaborate again and just finding ways, how can we find ways to continue to elevate the show, to deepen the storylines. I'm so proud of what we've been able to do creatively, visually, the team is excited. The writers, the showrunners, we've been talking recently, and the wheels are starting to turn as we start sort of putting our gaze towards this next season. It's quite the blessing. I'm really grateful. It's the first time for me to be able to jump on, go back to a show for a fourth season. But it's a character I love, so very excited about it.
And in the leading role, no less.
Yeah, and a couple hats as an executive producer, as the lead, and as a director. I'll be directing this season again, and I'm really excited to step back into that position. I had a blast directing the premiere of season 3, and it's just we're very lucky that we just have a really great creative team, and so to be able to get to collaborate with them during prep and really setting up the show. I like doing the premiere of the show logistically. It makes sense because I have the time to, but also I like to try to set the show off on as strong as foot as possible for the season.
So, what do you enjoy most about being an executive producer and director on Will Trent? And what have you learned from the experience so far?
I love to collaborate. It's why I'm not a novelist. Being able to creatively collaborate with smart people. Our showrunners, Liz and Dan, are really smart, bright, funny. And I love that we get to kind of, as an executive producer, I get to be kind of as involved as I'd like to be, which is very much so. It adds a lot more to my plate. Being the lead of a show takes up a lot of bandwidth. But being able to, I take on the challenge because it's exactly what I wanted, to be able to get involved in story concepts and ideas, scenes, story arcs, director conversations, who's going to be directing, the visual look of the show, the cuts of the show, the music, all the fun creative parts. I mean, it's something that turns me on very much so from the inside out, where I get to kind of really be involved creatively. And it's been a relationship that's grown between the creators and myself, where we've been able to really feel each other out in that process of taste and trust as you sort of are putting this thing together, and it's working. And so I'm excited about that. And directing has always been a passion of mine. So to be able to do it, on this show with a character that I really adore and a team that I love working with, it's uh, it's a real gift.
Will Trent balances heavy drama with levity? How do you personally reset after intense scenes?
I think that's one of the things that our show is able to do quite well. That's not easy, not only from the aspect of writing, but also from the aspect of acting with regards to our cast and guest cast. When we're casting, we're very mindful because it's some people have strengths and weaknesses. All of us do actually. And you want to kind of know what you're dealing with when you're casting someone. Are they able to handle some comedic scenes or some dramatic moments? Because we do both. And so, as actors, that's incredibly exciting. It's challenging. It can be really scary. And so for me, luckily, it's not something that kind of sticks with me. I'm able to kind of put it away as soon as I leave set and I'm driving home. I'm blasting my music. I'm shifting gears. I'm thinking about what am I going to eat? And then I start thinking about what's the next day's work, to be quite honest, because then the next day's right there. And they're long days. And again, there's a lot of creative conversations I'm having. So I might be hopping on a call or a Zoom to talk about whatever's going on. But luckily that I'm able to put it aside and sort of put it down, which I'm happy about.
Do you find yourself sometime, whether it's to meditate, to shoot some hoops, as I've seen that that was your first love, perhaps? How do you what do you do on your free time when you have some, or some of the free limited free time while you're shooting?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to find, a balance. So, I love to go to the gym. I love to be able to get a sweat. That's also like a great release. And actually, a lot of times is when I have sort of interesting ideas come up, is when I'm, on the bike or on the elliptical or something like that. And so that honestly, the sauna and steam room for me, I find one wherever I go because it's critical. I get to just sort of stretch and unwind. And the mornings tend to be, if I have a 6, 7 a.m. call time, I'm up hours before that. That tends to be my real precious time where I kind of just get to be alone because then comes the day, I'm getting asked 1,000 questions, I'm getting pulled in a lot of directions. And so finding that quiet space for myself to reset, to get prepared is critical. But yeah, going on walks, going to the gym, cooking is very meditative. So those, whenever I can, I try to squeeze those in alongside with the gym workouts whenever possible. But it's tough. It is really, the time is the biggest issue that I think most people probably don't really understand of how much time is taken up.
How would you describe your work ethic? You talked about just now about preparing. What does that entail?
I'm a big fan of prep. That's critical. I think that comes from my sports background, the preseason before the season, the practicing before the game day. I've applied that discipline and mentality throughout my life, which has been really wonderful. I'm grateful for that sports background. So prepping can be everything from getting prepared for that day's scenes, what's coming up, to giving notes on that particular episode or maybe the next episode or outline that we're working on. So it really kind of depends. I mean, but the regular thing, the cycle that I know is happening is essentially I'm getting ready for each day, usually the morning of. That's just because of the schedule and how it works. I tend to end up having to wake up extra early to really prepare for what's coming up. What's nice, in addition to that, there's some vocal work that I do sometimes if I have time when I get to set with my dialect coach, just to make sure that that's all in tune and feeling right. The great thing is when you've done something for this long now, it does become a part of me. I find that it's much easier for me to dive into Will than it was in season one. I was still really making sure I had a grasp on it. Season two and three, there's a bit more confidence since I've been able to do it that much more.
How has leading Will Trent, a colorless role, as you yourself described it, helped make it a hit and changed your career and opportunities for yourself and other Latino actors?
Any role I've usually stepped into, especially later in my career, I never viewed them, just as I don't think many people do, as a Latino character. They're people, they're human beings that have specific circumstances and history. And that to me is the compelling, interesting part that usually draws me to a character. So Will Trent is someone that had a really complicated childhood in the foster care system, trauma, physical, a lot of abuse, dyslexic. And despite all of that, his resilience in his heart is probably what really resonated most with me. And the books, as you said, he was not written to be Latino. That's exciting when we get to start playing roles that just are people, that don't have to be necessarily labeled and also personified as a Latino. Will is an amazing opportunity for me in that way because that's the only way I looked at him as a person that grew up in the South in Georgia. So that ended up sort of really playing a role in every aspect of him, the way he sounds, the way he dresses, the way he looks, the way he behaves. He's not a Nuyorican like me. He's from the South, and so he should sound like that and feel like that. So there's a little Southern hospitality to him. There's a little, his dialect has a very specific sound. So all those things, the way he dresses and looks, it all has a bit of a throwback vibe to it. That's an exciting opportunity, I think, for in general, I think a lot of actors feel that way, where we do want, particularly if you're a Latino or Black, it's you just want to play an interesting, compelling character, and you're not trying to sort of check a box or portray a culture and say, he's Latino, so he must be like this, because we come in such various looks, shapes, energy, job descriptions. histories. And so that's been a really exciting part. And I love that with the way we kind of explored his culture and his heritage was authentically, because he's somebody, and it was a slow burn. He's someone that doesn't know anything about himself. He doesn't know about his history and where he comes from. So when he discovers about his mom, where she comes from, when he goes to Puerto Rico and learns more about where he's from, it's been a beautiful, natural progression of exploration for someone who doesn't know much about himself. And so hopefully, there's been other people who've been able to do that. Hopefully, this is another step in that direction where we get to continue representing characters and human beings that don't have to be necessarily labeled at the forefront, whatever culture, ethnicity that they are.
What do you consider to be the pivotal moment in your career?
The pivotal moment. I mean, uh, a huge moment in my career was when I got out of doing commercials and I got my first TV gig. That was huge. Well, first one, by the way, Nike commercials. That's where it started. That was a huge pivotal moment. After that, I would say it was when I got The Wire on HBO, another huge pivotal moment, followed by a really big movie, Transformers. That was another great, and a moment again. There's another character that was a tech computer geek kid, so it had nothing to do with the sort of typical stereotypes and misconceptions. And his name was Leonardo de Ponce de Leon Spitz, you know, just a fun character. And so that was another great, sort of pivot in my career that was a monumental moment. There's been several, I have to say, and this has been a definite another one where I think the interesting thing about this one is that the longevity, the fact that this is a show that continues to grow every season in audience, that we keep sort of growing, which in today's day I know is really rare. That's been pretty special.
How do you think you have evolved as an actor, and what are your current goals?
Continuing to grow personally doesn't hurt in terms of how you're able to attribute some of that and bring some of that to your work. I think being conscious and aware of my own process and developing that and deepening that to hopefully create really interesting characters, and that goes into the process of selecting the roles that I take. That's been a fun evolution for me. I think, being that I do write and I have written before, that's played a major role. It's funny how some of the tools you sort of gather in life, you never know how they're going to be applied. And so directing, writing, which I've done before, and I've grown to have more of a passion towards, and I'm really focused on pursuing that more. It's been fun to see how that has actually played a key role in my process as an executive producer on the show, because that encompasses and requires those skills of a writer, of a director, being to understand how to tell story and character development. And so it's funny how these things I've been doing throughout my career, little by little, writing and directing, have now sort of led me to this point, this specific point on Will Trent, where I'm actually able to apply all of it. I'm directing, I'm involved in the writing and being able to have a voice in that process. That's something, moving forward, I have my production company, Altura Productions. I want to continue telling stories, really rich, compelling stories that are, yes, I want to really shine a light on our community and those stories that aren't being told that I know are so fascinating. And I know the audience is hungry for our stories to be told and to see themselves represented authentically. So that's an avenue I'm very much focused on and pushing, while I also want to just tell great stories in general, regardless of ethnicity, So, but I just know there's a real deficit in hearing our voices, our true voices, and having us tell those stories, not having them be told by other people. We have amazing writers and directors and storytellers that I'd love to be able to give opportunities to. For instance, episode 11 on Will Trent this season was written by a wonderful Puerto Rican writer that we brought on to the writing staff, Rebecca Murga. She crushed it. And there's so many more like that I would just love, because knowing the lack of opportunities, if I could be a part of helping uh, expand that and open that door a bit more, that's something I'm really focused on.
So you mentioned you have your own production company, Altura Productions. When did you get that started, and what's your vision behind it? What do you want to accomplish with your own production company?
Well, I sort of spoke to the mission, right? What I want to do, which is help tell, stories that come from our community and but again, it's also wider than that. But there's companies that I've seen that I've modeled after that I really love what they've done, where they've been able to kind of start focused on a community that has been neglected, and telling those authentic stories, and then expanding beyond that. So that's something I'm really interested in. I started it a couple years ago, and I've been able to sort of, I did a documentary under that banner that is in the works right now, that is in post-production. I've got TV series that I'm developing. I've got films that I've written that I'm developing. And so far it's been things that I've been very close to. The documentary, I was involved early on and been able to sort of get it financed and continue moving that forward. And the stories so far in television and film I've written. But there are other authors and storytellers that I know that I'd love to be able to bring on and hopefully develop a deal somewhere, or create a film fund where I can actually help finance and get these stories told, and start small and hopefully build out. That's kind of the progression I'd love to try to make happen.
Can you share some of those titles, or are they still in development? The documentary, the TV series that you're working on?
The documentary I can't speak to, but the movie that I wrote, I've written a film that I'm going to direct, a feature film titled Manchild. Um, and that's loosely inspired by my sort of New York, Puerto Rico growing up, and a father-son story. It sort of has taken its own, but it's loosely inspired by my history. And there's a couple other films. I can't really talk about them, unfortunately. That's the one I can speak to directly because I've written. Other ones I'm hoping to get off the ground and get closer to.
Do you think that maybe now with the success of Will Trent, you're going to be much more better received when you do these pitches?
That's what I hope. I mean, Will Trent came through a show. I didn't pitch it, but I did produce it, and I was involved in it. We shot the pilot. It didn't go to series, but that's the goal, and that's what the hope is, that trying to use this momentum and the good that's been coming from Will Trent, which is really incredible, um, and parlay that into other opportunities. Finding other great partners in the industry that see the value in the stories that we have to tell, and the ones that I'm looking to tell, and that want to really champion it and get behind it. So we've already started to gain some momentum, which is great. And I'm just looking to propel that, accelerate it, and just continue building that out, until hopefully, it's a bit more normalized to see our stories and to see Latino leads and Latino directors and writers and executives and studio executives. It'd be really fantastic to see that happen more and more, just because I know we're out there. And it's really just about opportunity and also understanding value, because I understand the value of our audience and our market. It's really about the industry understanding what that is. And I've said it before, there is so much money being left on the table, if it's strictly about economics and business, that's being left on the table, that and I know I'm not alone. There's other folks that I know that are really trying to push the needle and help get these stories told, and that so that there's an understanding that there's a real value, because the data's all there. There's data's about, the consumption that Latinos do in the box office, in streaming, in all of these different avenues where you can take in content. And so, I'm hoping to do that, and using Will Trent and showing the success of this show as an example of that as well.
You mentioned the Man-Child movie that you're working on. Is it going to be a comedy?
It's a drama, but it definitely has comedic elements without a doubt. I mean, and there's a big music element to it. I grew up with salsa music, and obviously we know the impact that our music has in the industry today as a whole. When you see artists like Bad Bunny, and many others, just globally being received, not only received, but it's like it's just exploding. And so I want to try to incorporate, I think it's a great opportunity to incorporate a really wonderful, heartfelt story, about a father son, and sort of a coming of age story, but incorporating music. My father was a composer, so I want to be able to incorporate salsa to today's present day sounds that are really just everywhere. I just think that's a great opportunity to infuse those worlds. In my opinion, the music industry has really recognized the value, and because of the artists have exploded, you can see how, oh yeah, when you have these artists being number one, number two worldwide, streaming, and their record selling or concert selling all around the world, it's almost like the music industry is ahead of the film and entertainment industry, which hopefully that changes. Hopefully we get to sort of show our value in that market as well and in that field.
You mentioned music. Uh, you you also mentioned you like salsa. I don't know
Yeah.
how good of a salsa dancer you are. I think I read that you had taken some classes and that you've danced with your family, and so there's a lot of a family element here. How important was your family in your creative evolution, and how proud of they are they of your success?
So I danced salsa. At first, not by choice. I was forced because I was raised in an apartment full of women and I didn't have a choice. So I'd be grabbed and snatched up to dance at every house party, birthday party, New Year's party. Um, and then later on, I actually found my real love and connection with salsa. And I ended up dancing professionally for several years. And it was an incredible experience with a dance company called Abacua. And so growing up in New York City, Puerto Rico, family, that energy, I mean, of course it inspired me. Growing up around music and a house filled with that kind of energy and vibe, I know that that artistic side definitely comes from that upbringing. And my family is yeah, they're very proud, and my mom is she's had premieres in Puerto Rico at grandma's house for shows, and I brought my family to movie premieres, and so they light up, they love it. And they tune in every week. They spread the word that all of our family on all of our group chats about Will Trent, and so I'm excited to be able to tell a story that I know is not a literal translation of my childhood, but I know they'll get some of the inspiration and they'll see that. And I think a lot of people relate to that. I mean, again, these stories that I'm looking to tell, they're universal stories. They just happen to be the specificity is through, a lens that I know well, that's authentic to me, which, for instance, Manchild takes place in New York and Puerto Rico. A TV show that I'm developing called New Eurekan is also that. I'm a New York. So I'm starting obviously writing things that I know well. They say write what you know, and that's what I've leaned into first. But then I just have met other people and other amazing writers. The pilot that I did for Hulu, Olga Dies Dreaming, was written by a wonderful Puerto Rican writer from Brooklyn, Xochitl Gonzalez. There's just so many people like that I just know they just need an opportunity. They just need their stories to get a shot and to be told well. It's not just about you got to put the right team together, and really I'm about quality. And I want to try to tell really elevated, awesome, inspiring stories.
You've received very positive reviews about your performance as Will Trent, and it's kind of making you a potential Emmy contender in that leading actor role. Um, what would a nomination and potential win mean for you?
I don't have any expectations. The one thing I can control, and I've learned that just being in the industry for a while, is my work. I can control the work I do, and I know my work ethic, and I know how hard I work. And with this show, I've put in a lot of sweat along with many other people and the writers and all the directors that come. And I really do believe that we've created a very, very special show. Um, Broadcast television recently, because back in the day, it was all about broadcast television. Those were the shows that were nominated. It's been a long time, particularly in the drama space, that broadcast shows are nominated. I even myself had my own stigma about broadcast and even being on shows because they started feeling a little formulaic for me. And so I wouldn't always watch those shows. And this show for me, I know we're like pushing the boundaries. And maybe that's part of what the attraction that we're getting. But I know from the character development and the character arcs, I mean, yeah, we're doing cases throughout the season. Typically, those cases, when they work well and are done well, they're sort of somehow involving a personal aspect of our characters. And what I love is that they continue on. This season, we had that episode 11 that I told you was so tragic. A boy dies in Will's arms because of an accidental shooting. That lasted the remainder of the season from episode 11 to 18. And it began to have him pull back and look at his own personal trauma and finally seeing a therapist. And so all I hope for personally is that if the show is doing well and being recognized and people feel like it's doing well, that critics they keep an open mind regardless if it's a broadcast procedural show. Because it doesn't matter for me. It's like we always talked about early on, this show airs on Hulu as well. We're making a Hulu show that happens to also air on ABC. And so that's been the push and the focus is regardless if we get nominations and accolades, I mean, those things are validating. It's nice to get. There you go, great. You know, there's a validation there that critically the critics are responding to the show as well. But I know truthfully and amongst the writers, we talk about it, it's like the focus is for us to do an elevated quality show, no matter where it airs. That's kind of been the approach. And I do think we've executed on that. And so the challenge becomes now season 4, just to continue. I feel like we've been able to build creatively every season. And that gets hard to do a good show. And then how do you continue building it and improving it and somehow making it better? And that's everyone's show. And so if we get a nomination, that'd be fantastic. Regardless, I know I'm showing up to work and giving 100%.
Any thoughts you'd like to share about, what this year has been like, or anything else that's on your mind that you would like people, your fans, to know?
I'm really grateful, to be honest. There's so many things you can watch and tune into, and there's so many channels. It's overwhelming almost as a saturation of like content that the fact that you never know why something is going to work, particularly with audiences, what people are going to gravitate towards. But I feel really, truly blessed that this is something that people are enjoying and that is growing every season. And that, I have people come up to me and they really, whether it's the dyslexia angle, whether it's the foster care angle, whether it's the scene where the kid dies in his arms, I've had law enforcement officers tell me that is such a real situation and you all portrayed it pretty darn authentically. It's hard to come back from an event like that, to go be a cop again and grab your gun. Doubt and uncertainty begin to creep in. So I guess, I'm just excited. I'm grateful. There's a lot of things that are working, and I just want to continue working on that and building on it.
Ramon, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and I wish you continued success. And I look forward to seeing Manchild and that mystery documentary that you mentioned.
Yeah. Gracias, Veronica. So nice meeting you. Thank you for taking the time to chat.
Thank you.